Hello there and welcome. My name is Adam and I am the creator of Mind Map Renovations, an innovative framework to help you live with intention, collaborate with your mind, and unlock that great potential. Today, I want to talk to you about control and control's older, more sophisticated brother, influence. So let's start with control. You know, that thing that everyone wants 100% of the time? Yeah, let's start there. Now, I will admit freely to being a reformed control freak, so I know how much wanting control can have a negative impact on your life. Let me give you an example. If somebody was behaving in a way that I didn't like or that wasn't in line with what I wanted or needed at the time, I was so upset. I thought, they're making me feel upset. They're doing this to me. So not only was I taking it personally, I was giving other people control over my emotions, which NLP taught me is literally the only thing I have actual genuine control over. So NLP has this concept that control exists in two camps, and it makes a lot of sense when you say it out loud. One camp is what you can control, and the other camp is what you cannot control. And what you can control is actually pretty finite. What you can control is you, your responses to the externalities of life. What happens with your emotions and how you express them, that's what you have control over, compared to what you cannot control, which is literally everything else. And that learning was the very first step that I took from being a control freak to a reformed control freak. For me, putting control into this binary place of what I can and cannot control was a complete game changer. Because before, I really didn't make that differentiation. I just thought I have a will and I want to exert it. And I just got increasingly caught up with the things that I couldn't control. And I was paying very little attention to the things that I actually could control. My emotions, my responses, my rational thought processes. So this is what it looks like to put it kind of in this binary frame. What I did is I put at the beginning of my trigger of whatever it was that I wanted to control, I put a filter right at the top that said, can I control this, yes or no? If the answer was yes, then that's wonderful. I move on, I control my behaviors, I control myself because that's what I have control over. If the answer is no, I ask a follow-up question. Can I influence this situation? Again, if the answer is yes, that's wonderful. I will go ahead and do my best to influence that situation. If the answer is no, I'll go back to controlling what I can control, which is myself. And either way, I end up feeling good about what it is I can control. So when I was able to stop trying to do the impossible, which was a little like just being stuck in quicksand. They say when you're stuck in quicksand, don't struggle, just wait until you hit bottom and then you can start crawling out. And I felt in my everyday life like I was being crushed by quicksand and I was just struggling. And the minute I relaxed and just kind of let the things that I could not control wash over me and turn my focus inward, everything changed. And for the better. And that's what I want to teach you how to do. A lot of the time, the things that we want to control are actually other people and how they behave or how we perceive their behavior. And one really great thing that I've internalized to help me let go of a lot of the control that I have around other people and what they're doing is I think about how I feel in those situations, maybe when other folks are trying to exert their control on me. And there's a saying I heard, and it just resonates, and I think about it a lot. And it goes, the first thing you need to know about me is that I'm not you. That's pretty powerful. We all have to remember that we are individuals with different hopes and dreams and histories and traumas and motivations and reasons why we do things, and also capabilities. A lot of folks are going to be at different levels. And so if things are happening that are not what you want or what you think, there's a couple things that you can do. One, step back and evaluate things from a little bit more of an objective standpoint. Are your expectations reasonable? Are you trying to get to an ultimately better place for everybody, or are you really trying to conform everyone to your standards and your preferences? So a little bit of perspective, stepping back, And also, mix in a little bit of empathy in there as well. What are the other folks in this scenario going through? What's their perspective? What's their history? All of those things will help you, I think, open your mind a little bit and help you release that control. Of course, the most important thing to remember is that you do not have control over other folks. They have autonomy, they have their own journey to walk down, and your part to play in that is not from a place of control. Now, it can be from a place of influence, and we are definitely going to talk about that. Instead of trying to control other people or situations, my invitation to you is to step into the control that you do have, that control over yourself. What does that look like? Well, for me, I noticed that when I felt like I was not in control or I wanted to exert some control, my go-to was to whine. Well, first I get a little angry, and that would work me up, and then that would allow the full-on whining to start. And so I would just kind of needle and push and stomp my feet a little bit until I got my way, which, yeah, okay, it worked, but I was never really proud of how it happened, and nor was it a very lasting impact. People will concede when they feel pressured. They will cave after enough constant berating, but they're not going to be convinced. They're not going to be on board. It's not going to be a long-term change. So for me, controlling what I could control was first recognizing that I was having that control response, that I wanted something, I wasn't getting it, and my initial reaction was to get angry. So I needed to tune into myself and start noticing when the anger would start or when those negative feelings would start. And then that was the cascade that would lead to the behavior. And so by cutting it off at that point and allowing myself to say, nope, Adam, this is not for you to interfere with. You can put your views forward. You can be calm, cool, and collected, but you are not going to get angry. And that was, an important step for me to let go of that control. In the beginning, it was hard because I still wanted it. It was my default mode. But as I let go more and more, it became very easy, and then it became very common for me to be able to be in situations where I wasn't in control and be completely okay with it and be cool, calm, and collected. Now, there's a lot of interior work that you can do, and through the course of being here with me during these Mind Map Renovation episodes, you'll get more and more tools to help you introspect, live with intention, and you can use that in these control situations just as well as any of the other situations that you want to improve on. Let's talk about the reasons people want control. Now, I have a personal belief and theory that pretty much all of our behavior is influenced by our past, by the things that have happened to us. And the ways that we have coped with those things are very much present in our everyday life. If you recall from a previous episode, our personalities, our programming are very much pretty much hardwired in from the ages of brand new to 7 years old. And so a lot of the belief structures that you have, a lot of the behaviors that you exhibit, they were pretty much founded in that time period. So updating those beliefs and behaviors is a lot of what Mind Map Renovations is all about. And the reason why folks might have a desire for control, I believe, I certainly think it was true for me, is when in those formative years of 0 to 7, we did not have very much control. There was a sense of very much not having autonomy, or there were things happening that just we didn't like, we didn't want. And because we're children, we don't have a lot of control over those things. And as children, we don't really have a lot of control even over our own emotions. We're still figuring all of that out. It's a very uncomfortable place to be in. So we grow up with this concept of, well, the solution to that is just to be in control all the time. So I'm going to whine and hold my breath and stomp my feet, and I'll get what I want, one way or the other. So that might have worked as a child. You may have gotten what you wanted as a child. But without updating that programming, we live our lives in that state of feeling like we were powerless. And it's a very uncomfortable place to be. And it creates a lot of uncomfortable feelings that then just kind of metastasize into even worse beliefs and behaviors. At the end of the day, I think that people want control because it makes them feel safe. And if you can control everything about what's going on around you, of course you'll feel safe. Of course you'll be safe. But that's just not the world that we live in. And instead, this urge for control ends up becoming kind of like a prison that we live in because we end up feeling so out of control because we are attempting to do the impossible. So let's turn that around and control what we can control because that is where we will feel the most safe. Now, we've talked about the impact of wanting control and what it has on you, but I do want to just spend a couple seconds here talking about the impact that your need for control might be having on other people, especially if you are a parent or a boss or somebody that has authority over someone else. If your need for control is so strong that you're exerting your control on a regular basis, you may be contributing to somebody else's complex with control. If you've taken that away from them, they then have this increased desire for control, or they may become resentful or rebellious or maladaptive in their own ways. So please think about maybe that aspect as well to help you make this transition away from the desire for so much control, because it does have real tangible impacts on you in the ways that you feel in your day-to-day life, but also potentially on the people that are closest to you in your life that you love very much and that you don't want to give them a bad experience, and you don't want them to feel powerless in their own right. You are well-intentioned, certainly, but there are definitely aspects you want to think about when it comes to how your desire for control is manifesting and what it means for you and the people around you. I'd like to just take a second to appreciate the very freeing feeling that it can be to give up the desire to control things that you have absolutely no actual control over. The world has a lot of big problems, and I think, those of us who are very empathetic to that and tuned in or just want to see the world be a better place, it can be very painful to look around and see all these things that are out of whack and that we have no control over them. But here's a reframe. That is not yours to hold. Yours to hold is what you have inside of you and how you decide to interact with all of the external things that are happening. And that is an amazing superpower that you have. Just because you're one person doesn't mean that that one act of self-betterment doesn't improve the whole. It absolutely does. Think about if everybody decided to control what they can control. They weren't operating off of default mode behaviors or fight or flight or fear or wants of control. If we all really took responsibility for owning how we interact with this world, think about how amazing that could be. That's the hope and dream, but it would just be amazing for you to be in that place of understanding, like, I can absolve myself of the craziness that is around me. It has nothing to do with me, and what I will focus on is what I have control over. And because you actually genuinely have control over this, you will feel empowered throughout that process. Now, let's talk about the more sophisticated older brother, influence. Influence is a great alternative to control when we're talking about working with other people and situations. Because like we said, can't control those things, but you can influence them. Like we talked about in our very first episode here at Mind Map Renovations, modeling is the strongest form of influence, and I very much believe that. A great example that most people know is Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer got practically every kid in his neighborhood to help him whitewash a fence by modeling how much fun it was to whitewash a fence. He influenced them by showing them that there was something in it for them if they did like he did. The important takeaway from this particular example is that when you model the behavior, it needs to be clear what the outcome is going to be. So in this case, it was fun that was being sold. It's really fun to whitewash this fence. So if you're modeling the behavior of getting up to go to the gym every day, because that's what you're trying to get someone else to do, if you complain and drag your feet and you hate it, but you still do it, that's not really the best form of influence. You're not selling it in the way that's actually going to be effective. So modeling is one way that you can influence folks. You can show them the way, and not only show them the way, but show them the benefits and what is waiting for them at the end. We talked in our very first episode about how when you are making improvements to your life and you feel happier and more peaceful and more in control of what you can control, folks will notice and they'll want to know how you did it. And that is a form of influence. You're getting the desired outcome, which is typically what people want when they say they need control. But you're not doing it in a way that's controlling. You're influencing. You're letting people still decide whether or not they're going to come with you. And that's so important. People need to feel like they have a choice. And that's a really important aspect of influence. You want to give people options based on what you know that their end goals are or what your end goals are. It's also really important for people to feel safe in situations where you're trying to influence. And by safe, what I'm really talking about is a psychological safety, meaning that people don't feel attacked or that you're trying to control them in these situations. And a really great way to help people feel safe when you're interacting with them directly and you're trying to influence or maybe give feedback or trying to steer someone in a certain way is to use I statements. You really want to avoid you're doing this, you need to change, you need to make a different choice. Instead, you could say, well, there was a time that I did something, something, or I would probably do it this way. If it were me, I would. Those are giving examples. It's creating a safe place where you're not putting the attention or the onus on that person. You're giving them a model. It's another, when I think about it, another form of modeling is when you're using these I statements and you're making it a safe place for that person to be open minded and to listen. And again, very important to note, they can make a different choice. They don't have to listen to you, and that's okay. All you need to do is be able to put that information out there, present it to them. Because if you have something you want to add, if you have a goal you're trying to make, that's the most that you can do, right? The worst thing is to do nothing, to sit back. I'm not advocating completely removing yourself from the world and I can't control anything, so I'm just not even going to try. There is this influence, and the more you get curious about how you can be effective in influencing, what needs are you trying to meet and what techniques do you have available to you, the better you'll get. You'll be able to plug and play the modeling, the I statements, the active listening, so that you can pick up on what's most important to somebody, so that you can tailor your suggestions and your I statements more in the line of what it is that they are most interested in. The last form of influence that I'll talk about is the ability to gain credibility. So it's one thing to have opinions and have a preference on how you think things should go, but what's really backing that up? When you are able to walk the talk, to show that you are an expert in a certain field, that you have applied concepts and they have worked and you've got success behind you, that's a wonderful form of influence. And what really helped me in this way when I would start to feel a little out of control or frustrated that I wasn't getting people listening to me is I reframed it and I said, well, Adam, there's something that you're not doing here. You're not showing them the benefit. You're not showing them the value. You're not being clear enough about what it is that is going to be at the end of this effort, whatever it is you're trying to convince people of. So I took that onus back on me and I recalibrated how I was doing things. And what I found is that I was missing a lot of steps. I had put in my mind this picture of what it should be, and I was only explaining maybe 10% of it. So understandably, people didn't get it. They didn't understand. They didn't want to dedicate the time to understanding. That was on me. So I learned how to become more credible. I learned how to put foundations in place so that folks could feel confident about the things that I was putting forward, and I was clear about what it is that I believe would occur when that happens. So very outcome based, very focused on being a good communicator, understanding different perspectives, trying to understand where maybe I missed the mark. So whatever you can do to build your credibility, build your brand, for lack of a better term, what people think about when they hear your name, those things will ultimately land you quite a bit of influence that you'll be able to use to help you achieve your goals and be a better collaborator in general. And most importantly, It will put you at ease because you're no longer in a place of a win or a loss. If I can't control you, it's losing. And if I can't control you, it's winning. Uh, Getting rid of that mindset is going to pay dividends because we cannot control what we cannot control. It is setting ourselves up for constant disappointment and failure to try to control things that are outside of us. So, my invitation to you is to let go of the things that you cannot control, embrace the things that you can control, and build that influence muscle because it will pay you back. I would like to thank you so much for joining me for this topic of control and influence, and I hope that it has given you more tools for your toolbox to help you live with intention, collaborate with your mind, and unlock that great potential. Until I see you again, I invite you to always be nice to yourself.